Not so sure he had to take this fight, but he said, you know what? I'm a warrior. Who gives a damn about being a warrior? You do safety first. But he went, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to take on this dangerous puncher that's had all these knockouts. And, I'll mark time with another scalp, which I thought he would.
It was a close fight. He wasn't getting caught with anything clean. He wasn't getting pummeled from left to right. His head wasn't flapping around. He hadn't been down.
What they're saying is Eubank is too big for Conor Benn, so they want to make sure he doesn't get too big. There's only allowed to put £10 on between the weigh-in and the next morning, 8 a.m.
I saw what I was in there tonight. I thought that, once those bright lights hit and that round went and, I was in there that...
His jab, he was snatching at it, he didn't want to get it. Was Conor Benn any better than the first time? We don't even know, really. I can't take anything away from it. Conor Benn come out.
Duke McKenzie's immediate reaction to Conor Benn's victory summed up what many in the boxing world were already saying. This felt like a robbery in plain sight. Chris Eubank Jr. showed heart, craft, grit, and experience. Yet Benn managed to make him look ordinary. Not through brilliance.
Left. So, like I say, they deserve one another. It's a good fight on paper because for as long as it lasts, they'll just go at it for as long as...
But through rule bending and tactical manipulation. On paper, the fight looked close. In reality, Chris was stripped of his advantages and left at the mercy of scorecards that didn't reflect the action. To many viewers, Chris Eubank Jr. was robbed tonight.
A lot of those punches, and I have made the point, a few times on my own podcast since...
There's simply no softer way to describe it. Eubank delivered a sharp, intelligent performance, finding openings, landing the cleaner work, and fighting with undeniable resilience. Meanwhile, critics argued that Benn leaned on questionable tactics from the opening bell, tactics the referee and judges seemed all...
Chris' box there just showed you how hard making the weight was for him last time. The older he is, the weight, I can get you down to 2 stone. You might not be able to tie your shoelaces, but I can get you down. So even though he got down to it...
Seen that. I'm watching this and I just thought it was disgraceful tonight. I just thought that... Anyway, they robbed him of a victory, but people saw what happened.
To reward avoidance over actual
what Ben
fighting.
Walked away with wasn't
Tonight's wins, the referee and judges conveniently ignored.
The world watched
this wasn't
Chris
a win.
Undermined by a
it was
fighter
a theft.
Who played the system rather than met him. Punch for punch, Dave Allen echoed this sentiment plainly. Chris's accuracy was crisp, his footwork balanced, his timing refined. In his view, Ben didn't defeat Eubank so much as he avoided him. Skirting exchanges, relying on fast reactions,
blow for blow,
and staying just outside
Dave
danger,
Allen called it exactly as it was.
True consequence.
And the world saw
first
Chris
fight,
being humiliated
Ben
by a
hadn't
fighter who played the system
Merely
rather
survived
than met,
Chris, on the
and with the
other hand,
mindset of a
boxed
veteran,
with discipline and
only to be
maturity.
denied by
Only to be
judges
denied
who
by
seemed
judges who
determined.
appeared
Conor
to
didn't
reward
level up.
evasion over
He
engagement.
merely survived.
Dan Rafael
Meanwhile,
underscored the
Chris
uncomfortable
boxed
reality many
cleanly,
believed they
professionally.
saw Ben.
Trilogy fight, and maybe we just leave it at there. The father's had 2 and they've had 2 and it's 1 each, and maybe that's a nice way to finish it. But yeah, I feel for Chris tonight. I'm really happy for Conor because I thought he boxed the fight of his life under real pressure, actually, because another loss would...
He suggested, landed almost nothing meaningful. His success came not from commanding exchanges, but from slipping away from them. Eubank, by contrast, won the moments that mattered, landing cleaner shots and controlling tempo. The issue wasn't skill, critics argued, but Ben...
I think Eubank is the one that's going to go for if he goes for a proper training camp, boxes a little bit behind his jab, I think he'll get the win. Maybe a stoppage.
Chris Eubank Jr. performed at a level that deserved recognition and victory.
Well, if he beats
but
me,
the judges...
1-1, whatever. But he just didn't have that fire in his belly tonight. Maybe he's just lost the taste for it. But for me, I don't come to many live events.
Ben's mastery of gray area tactics and a judging panel that enabled them. To those watching, Chris was robbed in full view. Johnny Nelson added that an overlooked factor shaped the entire fight. Eubank wasn't outboxed. He was physically compromised. Severe weight cutting had drained him, leaving him fatigued and vulnerable. Ben, in Nelson's view, capitalized on that exhaustion with precision. The imbalance didn't feel organic. It felt manufactured. What might have been a competitive contest became, in the eyes of some analysts, an exploitation of circumstance. Andy Lee didn't hold back either. He called the fight what he believed it to be: a disgrace. Eubank performed at a level worthy of recognition, perhaps even victory, yet the system failed him. Ben walked away with a...
Really, he won every round, dropped it, 10 more seconds, the fight's over. Different kind of fight, obviously, to the first fight, but needed to be. Needed to box smart and not use his emotions in there. I thought he boxed really well, busted him up to the body, and massive win for a welterweight to come up to middleweight and avenge that defeat and finally get a victory for the Benn family in the 4th episode.
A win that many saw as the product of loopholes and leniency. The crowd sensed it, the pundits sensed it, and the final verdict left a bitter aftertaste. A victory tainted in this way hardly felt like a victory at all. Even Adam Smith, while attempting to credit Ben, inadvertently highlighted the truth many felt. Eubank was the one fighting through adversity. While still dominating long stretches, Ben's win didn't seem earned so much as escaped. Chris deserved admiration for his composure under pressure, not the humiliation imposed by a flawed decision. From this perspective, the fight wasn't won.
I'm not sure what I can get away with from the last fight. The pendulum, he rinsed himself down that much, he's thinking he can do it again. As I said, anybody can get down to the weight, it's what you can do at the weight. Boxing is the worst place to be if you aren't going to put yourself at a disadvantage, because it's the only place you can legally get killed. And so what Chris did was, Chris depleted any advantage he had.
It was taken. Shane McGuigan reinforced the idea that if Chris trains smarter and adjusts strategically, he has everything needed to reclaim what was taken from him. In his eyes, there was no ambiguity. This was a robbery. Ben may have exploited judging tendencies tonight, but a recalibrated Eubank could flip the narrative in any rematch. Dominic Ingle went straight to the core of the controversy. Chris entered the ring with intensity and purpose, while Ben, he felt, leaned more on favorable officiating than on pure boxing. Eubank displayed discipline, determination, and cleaner technique.
And just dominated the rematch. It was not even close. From the first round on, this was a completely different fight from the first one. It was not in any way, shape, or form even round 13 of the 12 previous. This was a completely different Chris Eubank Jr., completely different Conor Benn, and
Ben, according to critics, leaned on every gray area available, scraping by on technicalities. The scorecards didn't reflect dominance. They reflected politics. Fans and analysts alike believed they saw a fighter denied justice. Eddie Hearn echoed what the performance suggested to many Chris-commanded exchanges, landed the crisper work, controlled rhythm, and dictated the pace. Yet the final score told a contradictory story. Ben relied on movement, retreat, and opportunistic flashes to survive, while Chris delivered what many saw as a technical clinic. To observers, this wasn't a close fight. It was a decision hijacked by questionable judging. Johnny Nelson closed by emphasizing the harsh truth. Chris gave everything, but Ben exploited the system. Eubank sacrificed physically to make weight. Ben took advantage of every loophole that sacrificed Chris.
It's the trilogy, so if it's close, they give it to Conor Benn. But listen, it wasn't close. My scorecard reads 120-108. Chris Eubank Jr. may have shared the third round. The Haymaker had that one shared, so I shared it as well with him. But the last round was a 10-7 round, 2 knockdowns. So it was a shutout performance from round 1.
Created. To many, this was never a level playing field. It was a strategic imbalance that shaped the fight from start to finish. Many fans argued that the circumstances surrounding the fight seemed designed to tilt things before the opening bell even rang. Chris fought brilliantly, but the system and the setup appeared to work against him. The humiliation wasn't in how he performed, it was in the final verdict. And while some pundits, such as the Wade Concept, claimed Conor Benn dominated, viewers who studied the footage saw something different. Chris looked like the sharper boxer, the cleaner puncher, and the more tactically complete fighter. Yet the judges, critics felt, chose a narrative instead of reflecting what happened in the ring. To those fans, this wasn't a defeat. It was a public stripping of credibility from a fighter who, in their view,
round after round after round, the feints, it upset him, the game plan by Tony and Conor, and the most important thing is he keeps to it. He gave it everything he had in round 7 and 8, and he landed 2 big hard shots, and he still didn't deter from the game plan, and that showed.
Yeah, I think he didn't want to pay that 500,000 fine. So he trained so hard, he lost weight, he didn't want to pay the fine.
Should have had his hand raised. They believe Ben beat the system, not the opponent in front of him. Tony Bellew praised Ben's discipline, but even within that praise, many felt the underlying reality was obvious. Ben's game plan appeared focused on limiting risk, avoiding danger, exploiting advantageous weight circumstances, and keeping exchanges to a minimum. Chris, meanwhile, fought with heart, landed the more meaningful shots, and showcased world-class fundamentals. Yet the judges rewarded a style many saw as built primarily on evasion. To those critics, this was a robbery dressed up as strategy. Derek Chisora highlighted another angle, suggesting Ben's approach seemed designed to avoid massive fines rather than win the fight on purely competitive terms. Ben fought safe, leaned heavily on officiating leniency, and kept the contest contained. Chris carried the action, absorbed the rougher moments, and still outperformed Ben in the eyes of many watching Carl Frosch express the same disbelief. He argued that the fight wasn't close. Chris outboxed, outworked, and outskilled Ben from the first round onward. Yet the scorecards read as if it had been a shutout the other way. Frosch's reaction underscored how bizarre the official interpretation felt. How a fighter seen by many as second best could be elevated to hero status by the judges. For those critics, the situation bordered on embarrassing for the sport. To that segment of fans and analysts, the truth felt undeniable. Chris Eubank Jr. appeared to be the superior fighter on the night. Ben may have left with the official win, but many believe the real victory belonged to Chris in their eyes. Refereeing choices, loopholes, and strategic advantages created the illusion of dominance where none existed. Chris showed courage, skill, accuracy, and heart, but the system, they argue, failed him. Boxing is meant to be fair. Tonight didn't feel that way. If you believe this,